Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Great Scott! There's no crying in baseball!
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
This is where the fun begins.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That's right, we're ranking One of Those Days. One of Those Days is a 2025 American female buddy comedy film where best friends and roommates Drew and Alyssa scramble to raise rent money after Alyssa's boyfriend spends it, leaving them on a comical race against time to avoid eviction and preserve their friendship. One of those movies that I don't think I was the audience for, but honestly I had a pretty good time with. Let's get into it with the 10 essential aspects of a movie. First is plot. Does the movie follow a comprehensive story arc and is plausible within the world that has been created? The plot of this movie was good for a comedy movie. I mean, it's exactly what a comedy movie needs. It's simple. It wasn't trying to be too dramatic. That's kind of what played into the comedic aspect, was how relatable it was, how simple it was. I enjoyed that. I thought it went from one problem to another fairly smoothly. It's just one of those comedy movies where things get worse before they get better. And I thought the story was interesting enough to keep you tagged along for the entire movie. Second is attraction. Does the movie have an interesting premise with a high entertainment value? Honestly, I thought this movie was surprisingly relatable. I thought this movie was not for me. I am not the audience of this movie. There is a target audience, but it is written well enough, and there are things in there that are just simple enough ideas that they are relatable in some way. That being said, I do think you would enjoy this movie a lot more if you are the audience that they are going for. I'm not. I still had a good time, but if you are the audience, I think you'll have an even better time. I think it'll be extremely relatable, and I think it will be even more funny. Third is theme. What message or truth is a movie trying to convey? The theme of this is obviously just about friendship. It's about getting through those times with one person. I think this is what that movie's supposed to be about. It's what's supposed to remind you of is all of the terrible times or the times that weren't so great in your life and the person that was there to get you through them. That's what this movie is about. It's about their friendship and their relationship, and it's supposed to remind you, I imagine, as somebody in your own life, which it did with me. It was a good time and a good theme. I thought it was fun for a comedy film. Fourth is dialogue. Is there a real feel to the conversation? This is where the movie really excelled. The dialogue was terrific when it was just the two main characters together. I thought their chemistry together was really good. It really felt like those two were friends. It was the way friends talk to each other. I thought for a comedy, dialogue is so important because that's really where a lot of your jokes are coming in, is either situations or in the dialogue. And I thought the dialogue of this movie was written really smoothly. The jokes were really well written. There are moments with side characters in this movie that it's kind of forced. It's not terrible, but it's just not the greatest. But most of this movie is about the two main friends, and the dialogue is great. It's funny, and it feels really real. Fifth is acting. Are the characters convincing? Now, it's a comedy movie, so most of the time, acting is not really something that's really prevalent outside of the main characters, and that is exactly what happens in this movie. Keke Palmer, who plays Drew, and SZA, who plays Alyssa, they do an amazing job together. I don't know how great they are on their own, but together, amazing. It was really good. It's up there as far as banter with some of the best buddy comedy films. I think they work well together. They did a really good job. I thought they were funny. I thought they felt really real. That's what really helped this movie, is it felt like they had been best friends for years, and that's what really needed to happen in this movie for it to actually be funny, for it to be convincing, and that's what it was, and they brought that to it. Without them, I honestly don't think this movie is as good, though the writing is really good. They just both did a really good job together. Sixth is cinematography. Is there a creative use of lighting, setting, and wardrobe to convey emotion? Now, I thought there was touches in this movie of cinematography. That's kind of how it goes with comedy movies. There's only so much cinematography and art form that you can put into it, but I thought there was some effort put in there. There's like a countdown that pops up every now and then that I thought was a nice touch, especially with trying to keep the plot very smooth and give you an understanding where they are in the day and where they're going, how much time things took. I like that. I thought that was a nice touch to keep the movie smooth. I also think there's a lot of good shots that have good comedic timing. They're not just thrown in there cheaply. There was some actual effort and thought put into having certain shots be a certain way to make it more funny. I thought there was some real effort there, and it showed and made it a better comedy movie. I thought it was funny, and I think it's the kind of humor that will always be funny because it is situational and it is personal. It is something that is relatable to a lot of people, but also it's not just cheap jokes that if you hear 1,000 times aren't funny anymore. It's situations that will always be funny. I think that's something to recognize that puts it above a lot of cheap funny movies is actual good comedic writing, which I thought this had. Now, it did try to have some sort of heartfelt moment, and it kind of worked only because of the actors and the dialogue just feeling so real. You really believe this friendship, but honestly, I didn't really feel anything that emotional, but they did try to do that, and it was present, and it didn't flop on its face. It just wasn't, because I don't think I'm the audience and it's not that relatable to me, it just didn't hit me all that hard personally. Seventh is editing, and this is all about the pace of the movie. The movie is an hour and 37 minutes long. I don't think a comedy should ever be longer than that. I think that's a perfect time. I think an hour and a half is exactly what you need to just sit down, relax, enjoy a good movie, have a few laughs, but not take up all of your day. I thought the timing was good. It wrapped up when it needed to. It was long enough. There's enough in the story to keep you all the way to the end. It's a good time. Eighth is soundtrack. The soundtrack of this movie is honestly, it's forgettable. It's a comedy movie. There's nothing, they didn't weave it into the story in any way. It's just the same music that's in any other comedy movie. Ninth is directing. Now I feel the director is in charge of the previous 8 aspects. They're the ones that have to put it all together, give it their stamp of approval, and make a really good movie. Now the director of this movie is Lawrence Lamont, and this is actually his first movie that he's directed, and I think he did a great job. I think there's a lot of mistakes that you can make in your first time directing, and I have a lot of leniency with that. I feel like anybody does anything for the first time, you're gonna have mistakes. For it being his first time, I thought he was really smooth. I thought he had a couple things in there that helped him stand out as far as a good filmmaker, especially the quality of the comedy. I feel like it's really easy, kind of like horror movies, to just go cheap and easy and have slapstick humor. He had a couple of those, but for majority of the movie, there was some actual good writing and there was some good shots for comedic timing. I think he's got a lot of promise. I'm kind of curious what else he can do. I'm curious if he can do something more serious, because I think he's kind of got a creative style that could warrant a good serious movie. So it'll be interesting to see what else he makes. 10th is time. Will it stand the test of time? Personally, it won't really stand the test of time for me, other than the fact that it was well written, but I'm just not the audience. If you are the audience for this movie, if you can relate to a lot of things in this movie, I think it will stand the test of time, because it's just a well written comedy. And those, when it's just situational comedy, when the situation is good and the jokes are well written, usually that will stand the test of time and it will always be funny. Now for the review section. Rotten Tomatoes critics gives it a 95, the audience gives it a 90, and IMDb gives it a 71. I think I'm really in the middle of all these. This is more of a B movie for me. It's more of an 80. I don't necessarily agree with any of them. It's just not good enough when put up against every movie ever to be in the 90s. It's just part of it is just not me not being the audience, but it's just not that memorable of a movie either. It doesn't do anything amazing, but it's a good movie. It's a good time and it's funny. So I feel like it's a solid B movie. Lastly, for the rankings. For the year of 2025, out of 3 total movies on the entertainment side, it is going to be second, just below Den of Thieves 2 and above The Damned. Now, this is one of those movies that I would not choose to watch again, but I do feel on the entertainment side it's a little underrepresented just because of my opinion. This movie could be much higher for certain individuals. I think others are going to put this movie higher because they enjoyed it more, but on a personal level, it was good enough, but it just wasn't a movie that I'm going to go to. So I have it below Den of Thieves 2 for that reason. Den of Thieves 2 I'm not going to go to either. However, it's just an idea that is more appealing to me. I really enjoy heist movies. I really enjoy the setting of that movie. There's just some parts of it that I just like a little bit better than what One of Those Days is going to provide, but I do feel like it's a little underrepresented just because it's my own opinion. But I do have it above The Damned, and that's honestly not a hard ranking at all. One of Those Days is easily made for entertainment, and The Damned was a much more serious movie. They're not even close. I don't even really have to explain it that much. Now, cinematically, out of 3 total movies, it is going to be first above The Damned, and honestly wasn't that hard to put it above it. This isn't a cinematic movie, but it does what it wanted to do well. It's an entertainment movie. It's supposed to be funny, and it's supposed to try and tug at your heartstrings a little bit. That's exactly what it did, where The Damned was trying to be a serious movie, but honestly fell kind of flat and got boring. It just had aspects that are, because you were trying to be serious, I'm going to be more nitpicky. I'm going to be looking at your movie harder, and there's things that I just thought were disappointing in that movie and weren't done as well. Where One of Those Days is a good entertainment movie with a couple flashes of trying to be something a little bit unique and a little bit different, and that just represents film better than a movie that just kind of fell short on what it was trying to do. Now, for the decade of the 2020s, out of 36 total movies, on the entertainment side, it is going to be 22nd, just below Gladiator 2 and above Mufasa the Lion King. Now, I have it above Mufasa the Lion King because that is a movie, again, it's in that category where I just wouldn't choose to watch it, but it was just decent. It was okay. There are parts of One of Those Days that I actually liked. I thought it was funny. I thought it was written well. So I honestly just think I would prefer to watch One of Those Days fairly easily because it's also a movie that was made to entertain adults, where Mufasa is more made for children. Now, I have it below Gladiator 2 because of personal preferences. I just enjoy the idea of gladiators more. There are problems with that movie that I don't love, but the setting and the subject is just more interesting to me than what One of Those Days is, because it's not relatable. I'm not the audience for it. Now, cinematically, out of 36 total movies, it is going to be 21st, just below The Fall Guy and above Gladiator 2. Now, I have it above Gladiator 2 because Gladiator 2 has problems. Though it does a lot of some things fairly well cinematically, it has plot problems that I thought just fell short. I feel like it's a movie that was really riding the coattails of the first movie and just relied on it too much. I think One of Those Days is a solid movie on its own that does what it's supposed to do, but it also adds a couple cinematic things in there to make it just a little bit unique. Where Gladiator 2, I've got my issues with it, and I just feel like a movie that doesn't have issues is better than a movie that does. Now, I do have it below The Fall Guy. These movies are extremely similar, except I just feel The Fall Guy did a little bit better job with the emotional side. I thought that you were more invested in the romance side of The Fall Guy, and I thought some of the nods to the stuntmen were nice and interesting. I feel like it's a movie that also does really well and is funny and is written really well. It just does a couple things to make it a little bit unique. I just thought it did a couple more than One of Those Days. Now, all time, out of 48 total movies on the entertainment side, it is going to be 33rd, again just below Gladiator 2 and above Mufasa the Lion King. Cinematically, all time, out of 48 total movies, it's going to be 28th, just below A Million Ways to Die in the West and above The Whole Nine Yards. Now, I've got it above The Whole Nine Yards because that's a movie that, again, I enjoy the comedy. I thought it was written well, but that story is one that on the rewatch, it's not as intriguing because it does have some mystery in it, and it does have some plot twists in it. And when you watch it again, it's not as intriguing because you already know what's going on, but it also doesn't do anything extra cinematically. It really is an entertainment movie that the only cinematic thing is that the plot is interesting, but when you watch it multiple times, it's not as interesting. Where One of Those Days, I think, is consistently interesting, consistently funny, and those little things that make it unique will always be there. Now, I do have it below A Million Ways to Die in the West, and that is because of the romantic aspect of A Million Ways to Die in the West. I thought that was done better. I thought it was just brought more emotion to the movie. I cared about it. I'm also a sucker for romance, so that is just something that I thought was done well, where One of Those Days doesn't quite have the emotional side for me that A Million Ways to Die in the West does. Okay, that's all I've got from One of Those Days. Honestly, surprisingly good. I thought it was a really good movie. I thought it was a movie that wasn't for me, so I wasn't really gonna like it all that much, but it was done well. I feel like even movies that don't interest you all that well, when they're written really well, you will enjoy them. When they're just a quality movie, you will enjoy them, whether you love that genre or the topic that much, you will enjoy it. Please make sure to comment what your thoughts were. Did you enjoy this movie? If you didn't see it because of the topic, I would recommend to go see it. I just think it's a quality movie. I think it's a good time. I think you'll have a good time. If you're interested in somebody who does the exact same format as me, ranking against the same year, decade, and all time, then go check out my best friend Bosso Movie Reviews. He does the same thing, but he also has a much bigger list. He goes through movies much faster than I do, and he's done a lot of past movies, a lot more than I do. I like to keep up with the current movies a little bit more. Don't quite have the time to do as many as he does, so go check him out if you're interested. Otherwise, comment a movie you want me to review, and make sure you subscribe so that you can see me review that movie. But otherwise, that's all I got. I'm Mr. Majoritarian. Stay classy, San Diego.